Greetings and salutations, Scribblers. I'm Katie, the founder and CEO of the Scribblers Den, where writing craft meets writing community. Today, we're talking about writer's block. Writer's block is something that every writer encounters. It doesn't care how long you've been writing or what genre, or if you have a deadline coming up, it will find you and try to ruin your life. Okay, that's a little bit dramatic, but it definitely feels that way when I sit down to write and I can't get the words from my brain down to the page. So let's take a look at what writer's block is and a few ways that you can push past it. Remember, again, there is never one answer or one way forward. The tips I give might work for you, or they might not, or maybe it'll spur you on to come up with an even better solution. So take what works and leave what doesn't. So with writer's block, I think one of the first things to do when you feel like this is what's interfering with your creativity is to check in with yourself. And what I mean by this is to do a mental, emotional, and a physical check of what's going on in your brain and your body. Sometimes writer's block is your brain telling you that you have too many things going on and writing isn't the priority, even if you want it to be. If you're having family, friend, or work drama, or worried about finances, it's going to be a struggle to shift your focus to writing. So you might need to step back and do what's necessary to kind of deal with those other things in life so that you can allow your brain to relax and shift back into creative mode. This also applies to your physical state. If something hurts, you sprain an ankle or a wrist, or you have a headache, it's going to interfere with your ability to be creative. Your brain is focused on trying to mute that pain or that discomfort. And so you're not going to be able to do what you want to do with writing wise, right? I know that if I'm not comfortable, I struggle to write. So for me, this can be as complex as having a really bad day with managing my diabetes, because sometimes no matter what I do, my blood sugar is all over the place. And it takes its toll on me, like physically. Or sometimes it's as simple as the room being a bit too cold. And I'm like, oh, my hands are so cold. I don't want to write. So now, like, I have a space heater that I keep underneath my desk, and I will run that thing in the middle of summer because sometimes it gets a little chilly with the air conditioning on in my house. And no, I'm not turning the air conditioning off because my dog needs it. He very much so loves his air conditioning. So I've got to like bundle up, right? But I have to do that. I have to keep myself warm because otherwise I can't write, and it interferes with my creativity. So sometimes it's really simple of just making sure that you're comfortable. But no matter what, in the end, you need to make sure that you're tuned into your body's needs. And this might sound really obvious, but usually the obvious things are the bits we tend to ignore or miss. We're like, yeah, I have a headache. I'm going to do this anyways. I got it. And really what we need to do is deal with that headache, or we need to deal with those bills that are due, or deal with that friend, family, work drama, so that we can get that off of our plate and then just be free to be creative. So don't ignore it. Don't forget to check in with yourself. And if you're struggling with that, and that's what it is, awesome. If you're not, if you check in and you're like, no, like I'm good. I am good to go. Then we need to start looking at other reasons for why this writer's block is preventing your brain from moving forward with your writing. So you've done that. Now you're mentally, emotionally, and physically checked in. Other possibilities. For a lot of writers, sometimes just staring at that blank page is intimidating. There's a sense of overwhelm and realizing we're about to put our thoughts down on the page, and they'll become real things that other people could look at or ask questions about or discuss. Or maybe you're just staring at that blank page, wondering how to start this chapter or scene. Either way, you have to type something. Otherwise, you're never going to break through that writer's block. So one possible solution, and something I personally do all the time when I'm writing, especially during the drafting stage, is that I always stop writing before I hit the end of what I know. And what I mean by this is I'll stop myself halfway through a scene or before I close out a chapter, as long as I have a really clear idea of what comes next. This way, when I sit down the next day, I can immediately get to work without having to sit and think about what actually comes next. And sometimes I'll leave myself a few notes to help remind me of any specific elements or ideas that I want to include. But it's just a really simple trick to kind of kick my brain into gear and shift into writing mode. Another possible solution is to go back and do a light edit or a revision of what you wrote the last time. So again, this works in that same way because it signals to your brain that it's writing time, and it jumpstarts your creativity as you settle back into the story, because you're kind of like, oh yeah, this is what I was doing yesterday. And it starts just bringing all those pieces back together. Another way to just move forward is to just start telling yourself the story and writing that down instead of actually writing. So instead of like writing from your character's point of view, you might just write something to the effect of, and after they leave the house, they need to run into their mom. And then she'll be coming home from work and be upset that they snuck out. But then an ice cream truck careens down the street. And so by just kind of like giving yourself like this director's notes outline type version, it helps you to get the words flowing without the pressure of making them good, because that's another thing, right? We want them to be really good. Once you've gotten the director's notes version of it down, you can go back and write it in the actual voice and point of view that you intended. I know that sometimes I run into that problem, especially when I'm revising a manuscript and I get to a place where I have to insert a whole new scene or a chapter. The rest of the manuscript has had some tender loving care, and it's been through revisions, and it's shiny, it's nice, right? I fixed it up. And I get really frustrated with whatever new bit that I'm drafting because it's not as good, because it's the first time it's ever come out and the first time it's ever on the page. So it's not going to be as good as those things that I have previously written and worked on and revised and polished up really nice. And I get really stuck on that. I'll get frustrated. And if it's not perfect, then I just can't go on until I get that perfect word or that perfect line of dialogue. And I really have to shake myself out of it or remind myself that it doesn't have to be good. It just has to exist, right? That's your first draft. It just has to exist. And I'll have the opportunity to come back and revise and play with it. So a lot of times writing out the scene as like director's notes or an outline really helps me to let go of that need for perfection and allows me to get past that moment of writer's block, right? Another form of writer's block, and one I think a lot of us run into more than we care to admit, is when we're trying to push our manuscript into the wrong direction. So this might be a plot point that doesn't make sense, or a character saying or doing something that just doesn't quite fit. As the author, we're like, this is so awesome. And they say this and they do this, and it'll be so wicked cool. But every time we write it, it just falls flat, right? And we just know in our hearts that it's not what we want. We get really frustrated because it's not making it out on the page the way that we're feeling it inside of us, right? So an example of this is in the first draft of the manuscript that I'm currently querying, I had this super cool swamp with trees in it, and those trees ate people. And as I revised, I kept trying to keep that bit in because I loved it. I am obsessed with the idea of sentient trees, right? But when I would get to that bit, I couldn't make it fit, and I kept getting stuck. And it was really frustrating to me, and I didn't want to do it, but I did end up completely removing it. I tried something very, very different, and it worked so much better from a storyline perspective. And it just like the words really started to come after that. So I've written chapters similarly from one character's point of view, and I just get stuck halfway through only to realize that it's not their chapter, and I have to switch that point of view. And as soon as I do it, the dam is opened and words flood onto the page. So if you're stuck, step away, do like a 180-degree pivot from where you were. That cool swamp tree that I took out, right? In the original version, the characters are trekking to like a different city. In the current version, the final version of this manuscript, they never leave the city that they start in. So it's a completely different direction. I did a 180. Instead of them going out on a trip, I just had them stay where they were. And it made so much more sense, and it worked out so much better. So for me, that moment of writer's block, of that frustration of trying to make this piece fit, was because it wasn't a piece of this story. So don't be afraid to play around, try new things, and almost like the more outrageous, the better. Try changing the emotions, the point of view, the location. Have it start to rain. Whatever it is that you do, that might unlock where you're getting stuck at, right? Don't let your brain trick you into thinking that there's only one path forward. There are hundreds of different ways to go forward, and exploring multiple paths isn't necessarily a waste of time, right? So that cool tree is now going into another manuscript where it fits perfectly in the world because there are several other types of sentient trees in there. And this whole time, like it was just, it got to me early, right? Now I have the place where it belongs. So I've taken it out of there, and it's now where it belongs. So I'm a really firm believer that no words written are a waste, whether or not they've worked out for that scene, because they've taught you something about writing, right? All right, 3 more tips for battling writer's block. The first one is to change up your writing method, right? If you normally type, grab one of those multiple blank notebooks that I know you have stashed around your house. I know you do not lie. And a pen or a pencil, and try writing by hand. Vice versa, if you're usually a write by hand kind of person. Research has shown that typing and writing by hand use different portions of the brain. So this is a great way to try to, again, trick your brain into doing what you want it to do. The second is to just sit down and make a list of all the things you love about the story that you're writing. So sometimes if the frustration of writing gets us down in the dumps, we really need to remember why it is that we love writing and why we love that specific project. Writing it down or sharing it with your friends can help to hype you up and get you excited for it again. Never, ever be afraid to be direct with your support team and your friends. And telling them that, be like, so I'm really frustrated with the story. Can you remind me why I like it? Or can you remind me why you like this story and why this story matters? Getting a pep talk can do wonders. It just changes your whole attitude about it. And it'll allow you, again, to start writing and get those words down. All right. My last and possibly one of my absolute favorite hacks for writer's block is to write fan fiction of your own characters. Sometimes I just think through this in my head, and other times I actually write it on paper. It just depends on my mood. But I love working through little slice of life scenes with them and imagining them like in a beach episode, a la Avatar: The Last Airbender, right? Which character would bring the snacks? Which one would be overly competitive? Who's making sure water safety rules are enforced? Who fell asleep in the sun without sunscreen? As silly as it sounds, it really helps to bring that joy and fun back into the writing process for me. And as a bonus, I'm doing character work because figuring out which of my characters in a story fits into each of those character archetypes gives me a deeper knowledge of who they are. So super fun. I highly recommend it. Of course, if all of this fails, then I usually just stop writing for the day. I love writing too much to let it frustrate me for an extended period of time. This is something I've had to learn as a writer, as I used to just keep banging my head against the wall when something wasn't working and I couldn't get the words down on the page. Learning to step away and sometimes just take a day or two or even a week to let my brain rest has been a game changer. It's so, so important to do. Of course, if you have a deadline, you have less wiggle room and you might just have to power through. In that case, Godspeed to you and you got this. You're going to make it. But those are my tips for writer's block. So I hope that this look has helped you to unlock some of your own words when you need to. And if you're looking for help brainstorming a new direction for your manuscript, please check out our coaching packages or our developmental editing options in the description down below. The Scribblers Den would love to be part of your writing journey. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time, Scribblers. Happy writing.